I always thought the quietest hours of the night shift were the safest. But when you're alone in a fluorescent lit box surrounded by darkness, you start to realize sometimes silence hides the loudest danger. Before I begin, make sure subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss these terrifying true stories, and leave a like and comment below because the ending of tonight's stories will leave you shaken long after you finish watching. Story 1. The man at the window. It was almost 2:30 a.m. and I was working the overnight shift at a small fast food restaurant off the highway. The kind of place that barely gets traffic after midnight except for truckers, drunks, or people too desperate for food to care that the fries have been under a heat lamp for an hour. The inside of the restaurant was dead quiet. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, and I could hear the hum of the refrigeration units in the back. Outside, the parking lot was empty, lit by one flickering lamp that cast long shadows across the asphalt. That light had been broken for months, so half the lot was swallowed in black. I remember leaning on the counter, scrolling through my phone, when I heard the chime. The soft ding that signaled a car had pulled up to the drive-thru. I glanced at the monitor, expecting to see headlights, but the screen was pitch black. Just static. "Hello," I said into the headset, my voice sounding too loud in the empty restaurant. "Can I take your order?" Nothing. Just faint crackling. I sighed, thinking maybe someone had pulled through without actually stopping to order. It happens. I set the headset down and went back to my phone. But then another ding. This time I turned quickly to the monitor. Still nothing, just the faint hiss of static. But I thought just for a second that I saw a flicker of movement, like something crossing the frame. I tried again. "Hello, drive-thru's open. You need to order at the speaker." Nothing. I stepped around the counter to peer out the big front windows. From that angle, I could just barely see the edge of the drive-thru lane. No headlights, no car. Just empty blacktop. The chime went off a third time. I froze. That sound is triggered by weight sensors buried under the concrete. It means something heavy like a car rolled over it. But the monitor showed nothing. The lot outside was empty. I remember my skin prickling, this uncomfortable awareness crawling up my neck, like I wasn't as alone as I thought. I decided to step outside. Who's to check? The moment I opened the side door, the air hit me cold, damp, smelling faintly of rain and exhaust. The highway beyond was a ribbon of silence. No cars passing, no engines in the distance. The parking lot stretched out, empty. My sneakers crunched against loose gravel as I walked toward the drive-thru lane. I turned the corner where the speaker box stood. Nothing. The box itself gave off a faint buzz. The old speaker wires rattling inside. The sensor strip gleamed under the weak light, but there was no car, no truck, nothing that could have set it off. And then I heard it. Whispering, not loud, not even distinct, just the faintest murmur, like two people talking right behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering. The lot was still empty. The air was still. I told myself I was just hearing the wires in the box. Maybe it was feedback in my headset. I went back inside quickly, locking the door behind me. When I returned to the counter, my headset was lying there only now. It was on. The little green light glowed steadily, even though I hadn't touched it. And through the earpiece was breathing. Slow, heavy, deliberate breathing. I yanked the headset off and tossed it onto the counter. It clattered against the plastic, the sound much too loud in the quiet restaurant. For the next half hour, nothing happened. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the fryer baskets, restocked the cups, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there, watching. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the chime went off again. I whipped my head to the monitor. This time, there was something on the screen. Not a car, not headlights. A man. He was standing directly in front of the camera, his face so close, the image was blurred. All I could make out were eyes wide, unblinking, staring straight into the lens. I stumbled backward, my heart in my throat. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. I tried to force words out, my voice trembling. "Serve at drive-thrus. 4 vehicles only. You can come to the front." The feed cut to static. The chime dinged again. When the camera came back, the man was gone. I ran to the front windows, pressing my face against the glass, but the lot was still empty. The single flickering light buzzed overhead, throwing long, shaky shadows across the pavement. I wanted to call someone, my manager, the cops, anyone but, what would I say? But a man walked through the drive-thru and disappeared. But I heard breathing in my headset. I tried to convince myself it was just a glitch. Cameras go out all the time. The headset probably picked up interference, but I'll never forget that last moment just before my shift ended. As I was clocking out, I walked past the windows one final time, and across the lot, standing in the farthest pool of shadow. There he was. The same man. Perfectly still, facing me, watching. Story 2. The woman in the dining area. When you work the overnight shift in fast food, you get used to strange customers, drunk people slurring their orders, homeless folks trying to sneak inside to nap, even the occasional fight breaking out in the parking lot. But nothing prepared me for the night. I realized not every customer is alive. It was a Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning, around 1:45 a.m. I worked at a 24-hour burger chain in the middle of a small town, the kind of place where we usually only got 1 or 2 people an hour that late. That night, I was the only employee in the front. The manager was in the office. The fry cook was out back on a smoke break, and I was standing behind the counter wiping things down. The overhead lights cast their usual harsh, sterile glow across the tiled floor. Outside, the town was quiet. No cars, no voices, nothing but the hum of the neon sign buzzing above the roof. The chime on the door rang. I looked up, surprised. Customers almost never came inside after midnight. Most just used the drive-thru. But this woman walked straight in. She looked odd. Not in a way you'd notice immediately, but something about her was off. She wore a faded gray hoodie, pulled tight around her face. Her hair stringy and damp like she had been standing in the rain. Her jeans were dirty, streaked with mud, and her sneakers squeaked faintly on the floor. She didn't go up to the counter. She didn't even glance at me. She walked straight across the restaurant, slid into a booth in the corner, and sat down with her back to the wall. I cleared my throat. Ma'am, you can order here when you're ready." No response. I stood there for a second, then reluctantly walked around the counter. As I approached, I realized something strange. She wasn't looking at a menu or at her phone. She was just staring. Straight ahead, her eyes were wide open, fixed on the far wall like she was watching something I couldn't see. I stopped a few feet away. "Everything okay, miss?" She didn't blink. "Did they? Movie." For a moment, I thought maybe she was on something. Drugs. Sleepwalking. Who knows? But then she turned her head suddenly, sharply, and looked right at me. I froze. Her eyes weren't just open. They were bloodshot, rimmed with deep purple circles, like Sayad and T slept in days. And her lips were moving. She was whispering. I leaned closer, just enough to catch the sound. It wasn't English. It wasn't anything I recognized. Just a string of low, guttural syllables, repeated over and over under her breath. I backed away quickly, goosebumps crawling up my arms. E-L-U. Get my manager. I practically jogged to the office in the back. I knocked, opened the door, and told him there was a woman acting weird in the dining area. He followed me out, but when we got back to the booth, she was gone. The bench was empty. No food wrapper, no footprints, nothing. We checked the bathrooms, the parking lot, even the sidewalk outside. Nothing. It was like she'd never been there at all. The manager gave me this annoyed look, like I'd wasted his time, and went back to the office. I stood there in the empty dining area, staring at the corner booth, my skin still prickled with that crawling sensation of being watched. I told myself I must have imagined it. Maybe she'd slipped out the door while I was gone. That had to be it. I tried to shake it off and went back to wiping the counters. The silence of the restaurant pressed in again, heavier this time. That's when I heard it, from across the room. A soft whisper, the same guttural syllables, spilling out in a steady rhythm. I whipped around. The booth was empty, but the sound was still there, coming from that same corner. I grabbed my phone, holding it like a weapon, and slowly crept toward the booth. The whispering grew clearer, almost frantic, and then it stopped. Dead silence. I reached the booth and leaned down. The table was spotless, the bench empty, but scratched faintly into the wood. Fresh enough the edges still flaked. Were words. 3 words, etched deep into the surface. Don't look out. My stomach dropped. I spun around and, without even thinking, my eyes went to the front windows. The glass panes reflected the harsh lights inside, but behind that reflection outside in the dark I could see something. A shape. A figure standing motionless on the sidewalk, facing the restaurant. I couldn't make out details, just a tall, thin silhouette pressed against the glass. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to scream for my manager, but the sound caught in my throat. The figure didn't move. Didn't knock. Didn't do anything but stand there, staring in. I blinked, and it was gone. When my shift finally ended, I sprinted out the back door to my car, refusing to even glance at the front windows. I didn't want to see if something was waiting for me in the glass. I never told anyone about that night, but to this day, I can walk past an empty fast food dining area without looking for that booth in the corner. Because sometimes I swear, if I glance quickly enough, I still catch a glimpse of her, sitting there, hood up, whispering words no one should understand. Story 3. The customer who never left by the time I'd worked late nights at my fast food job for a year. I thought I'd seen it all. Drunks thrown up in the drive-thru lane, teenagers daring each other to order naked, even a raccoon wandering inside. When someone left the back door open, nothing scared me anymore, until the night I realized one customer never left. It was just past 4 a.m., the deadest time of the shift. The restaurant sat on the edge of town, surrounded by fields that stretched into nothing but blackness. No traffic, no pedestrians, just silence. Inside, only the fluorescent buzz of the lights and the faint crackle of the fryer kept me company. I was behind the counter, zoning out, and the bell on the door jingled. A man walked in. At first glance, nothing was strange about him. He looked maybe mid-40s, tall, with thinning hair and a worn jacket. His jeans were stained like he worked some heavy labor job. He didn't make eye contact as he shuffled up to the counter. "Coffee," he muttered. His voice was low, raspy, like he hadn't used it in a long time. I rang it up, poured a cup, and slid it across the counter. And hooted, Onse paid with crumpled bills, and carried the cup to a booth near the windows. Nothing unusual. Customers sometimes came in for coffee before work. Except, he didn't drink it. He just sat there, staring out the window into the empty darkness beyond the glass. The steam from the coffee curled into the air and vanished. His hands rested on either side of the cup, motionless. 10 minutes passed. 15. He didn't move. I cleared my throat and tried to sound casual. "Everything okay, sir?" No response. He didn't even blink. I told myself maybe he was tired. Maybe he just needed a moment. But as the minutes dragged on, that explanation started to feel thinner and thinner. By the half-hour mark, the coffee sat cold in front of him, still untouched. I ducked into the back to grab my manager. When I explained, she rolled her eyes, but agreed to check. We came out together. The booth was empty. The cup was gone too. I swear, I felt my stomach lurch. My manager raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're not just sleep-deprived?" she asked. She turned away, muttering something about me needing a break. But I knew what I'd seen. I busied myself with closing tasks, trying to shove the encounter out of my head. I told myself maybe he left when I wasn't looking. That's all. And then, at 4:47 a.m., the bell above the door jingled again. I looked up hand. My blood ran cold. It was the same man. Same jacket. Same stained jeans. Same weary shuffle. He walked to the counter, muttered the same word in the same gravelly tone. "Coffee." I froze. My heart hammered in my chest. My hands shook as I poured him another cup. He paid with the same kind of crumpled bills, nodded once, and shuffled back to the same booth. He set the cup down, wrapped his hands around it, and stared out the same window, motionless. Silent. I wanted to scream, to demand what was happening, but something about the way he sat there naturally still, eyes locked on that endless darkness, made the words stick in my throat. I couldn't look away. Minutes dragged by. The steam rose, then disappeared. He never lifted the cup. And then, just like before, I turned my head for 1 second. When I looked back, he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just the faint outline of condensation on the window where his breath should have been. When my shift finally ended, I told myself I must be imagined Italiano, that exhaustion had played tricks on me, but I never forgot the clock. 4:47 a.m. the next night, I dreaded the hour, and sure enough, at exactly 4:47, the bell jingled. Same man, same coffee, same booth. I don't work there anymore. I quit after that week, but sometimes when I'm driving past at night, he look through the glowing windows of the place, and every time, no matter the night, no matter the hour, I swear I see him. Sitting in that booth, staring into the dark, waiting for a cup of coffee he will never drink. If you made it to the end, tell me in the comments which of these stories terrified you the most. Have you ever worked a late-night job and experienced something you still can't explain? I'd love to hear your story. And don't forget subscribe, turn on the bell, and smash that like button if you want more terrifying true stories just like these. Because trust me, what's coming next is even darker.